Let me tell you something. There is a part of you that already knows exactly how you lose. It knows the hour when your discipline weakens. It knows the excuse you accept most easily. It knows which fear can stop you, which insult can disturb you, and which temptation can make you abandon your better judgment. It has studied your habits because it has lived inside them. If you never face that part of yourself, you may spend years blaming life for defeats that were prepared within you long before circumstances arrived. This is difficult to admit, but admit it anyway. A man cannot conquer what he refuses to identify. You may have intelligence, ambition, talent, opportunity, faith, and a worthy desire, yet one unmastered weakness can continue defeating all of them. Perhaps it is procrastination. Perhaps it is fear. Perhaps it is the need for approval. Perhaps it is anger. Or perhaps it is the habit of beginning with great enthusiasm only to abandon the work when the excitement fades. Whatever it is, stop treating it like a small inconvenience. If it has repeatedly defeated your plans, then it is not small. It is an enemy of your future. Fox it directly. Do not hide it behind pleasant words. Do not call fear caution when you know it is fear. Do not call laziness rest when you know you are avoiding effort. Do not call indecision wisdom when you are simply afraid to choose. Accurate naming is the beginning of power. A hidden weakness survives by remaining vague. Once it is named clearly, it can be watched. Once it is watched, it can be interrupted. And once it is interrupted again and again, it begins to lose its authority. But first, you must become honest enough to stop protecting it. Many people defend the very habits that are destroying them. They say, "This is simply how I am." No, it may only be how you have practiced being. Practice can be changed. A habit may be old without being permanent. A weakness may be familiar without being necessary. The fact that you have repeated something for 10 years does not give it the right to command the next 10. Withdraw that permission. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you usually appears at the exact moment when progress begins demanding a price. At the beginning, desire is easy. Everyone can want, everyone can imagine, everyone can make promises while no sacrifice is required. But then the road asks for discipline. That is when the hidden weakness steps forward. It whispers, "Not today." It says, "You have done enough." It asks, "What if this doesn't work?" It promises there may be an easier way. Be careful with those voices. They sound reasonable because your weaknesses have spent years learning your language. Do not believe every thought simply because it comes from within you. Some thoughts are not instructions. They are old habits speaking. Your higher mind must judge them. Ask yourself where that thought leads. If you obey it today, and again tomorrow, what kind of man will it create? That single question exposes the truth. One careless action may seem harmless, but repeated actions become identity. One delayed duty may not ruin your life, but a pattern of delay will. One surrender to fear may be understandable, but a life organized around fear becomes captivity. Think in patterns. Your defeats are usually patterns before they become events. The final failure may appear sudden, but its preparation was gradual. A neglected standard, an excused habit, a warning ignored, a promise postponed. These small permissions quietly accumulate. Then one day the structure collapses, and the man asks, "How did this happen?" Look backward honestly. The answer is usually there. Do not use this truth to condemn yourself. Use it to understand yourself. Self-condemnation is just another form of avoidance if it produces no correction. A man may spend years calling himself foolish while continuing the same foolish behavior. That serves no purpose. The purpose of self-examination is not humiliation. It is command. You are searching for the mechanism of defeat. Find it. Perhaps your pattern begins with disappointment. Something does not happen quickly enough. Frustration grows. Your effort decreases. Eventually you convince yourself the goal was never important and you walk away. That is a mechanism. Or perhaps your pattern begins with success. You start doing well. You become comfortable. Discipline weakens. Preparation stops. Then decline quietly begins. That is another mechanism. Study yourself the way a strategist studies an opponent. Where do you break? When does it happen? Why does it happen? What usually comes first? The man who understands the beginning of his defeat can stop it before it becomes something larger. Do not wait for collapse. Interrupt the first step. If anger usually leads to foolish words, interrupt the anger before your mouth opens. If discouragement usually leads to giving up, take one small action before discouragement becomes surrender. If money in your hand usually leads to waste, create a rule before temptation appears. Prevention is always stronger than rescue. The weaker man keeps rescuing himself from the same fire. The stronger man stops carrying matches into the room. Champ the conditions that lead you into weakness. Do not rely only on willpower. Willpower becomes tired. Structure protects decisions. If you know your weakest hour, protect it. If you know certain influences weaken you, create distance. If confusion causes delay, prepare your next step in advance. Design your environment so that the better decision becomes the easier decision. That is not weakness, it is intelligence. A wise general does not place his army carelessly and then blame courage when the battle is lost. Position matters. Position yourself for victory. But never forget this. No structure can replace personal responsibility. At some point, you must still say no. You must still rise. You must still act. Do not become so fascinated with understanding yourself that you forget to command yourself. Knowledge without obedience changes nothing. The man who says, "I know why I do this," but continues doing it is still defeated. Use what you know. Your hidden weakness will resist being used against itself. It may even become louder after you identify it. That is natural. A habit threatened with extinction fights to survive. If you are overcoming procrastination, suddenly every reason to postpone will sound reasonable. If you are overcoming fear, danger will suddenly seem to exist everywhere. Hold your ground. Do not mistake resistance for proof that change is impossible. Resistance is often proof that change has already begun. Every time you refuse the old response, you weaken its grip. Every time you choose the higher action, you strengthen a new path. This requires repetition. Do not expect instant mastery, but do demand honest effort. Be patient with your growth, and be severe with your excuses. These two qualities must exist together. If you are severe with yourself but patient with excuses, you will only hate yourself while remaining weak. But if you are patient with yourself and severe with your excuses, you can grow without lowering your standards. Choose the second path. Remember this above all. You are not your weakness. You are the person responsible for governing it. That distinction changes everything. If you say, "I am lazy," your identity becomes trapped inside the condition. Instead say, "I have practiced laziness, and now I am practicing self-command." Language matters, but only when it is followed by action. Prove the new sentence with your conduct. Get up, begin, continue, complete the work. That is how hidden weakness loses its power, and that is how true strength is built. The body must learn what the mouth declares. Do not expect the defeated part of yourself to disappear simply because you have spoken firmly once. It will test your new resolve. Pass that test, then pass another. This is how self-trust returns. One of the first things repeated defeat destroys is your trust in yourself. A man stops believing his own promises. He says, "Tomorrow I will change," but deep inside, part of him already expects tomorrow to look exactly like yesterday. That expectation creates profound weakness. Repair your word to yourself by making smaller promises and keeping them without exception. Do not promise an entirely new life before sunrise. Promise one specific action, then complete it. Tomorrow, do the same again. It may feel slow, but it is not slow. It is the foundation. Every promise you keep restores your authority over yourself. A man who trusts his own word becomes dangerous to his former weakness. He no longer depends on emotion to carry him. His commitment carries its own weight. Build that strength patiently. Do not try to conquer every weakness at once. Choose the one causing the greatest damage and attack it at the root. Many people waste their energy treating symptoms instead of causes. They try to become more productive when the real problem is fear of failure. They try to spend less money when the deeper issue is the need to impress others. They try to control anger when wounded pride is the true source. Find the root. Ask yourself what your weakness is giving you. This is an unusual but essential question. Every destructive habit usually offers some temporary reward. Procrastination protects you from the possibility of failure. Seeking approval protects you from rejection. Anger protects you from feeling vulnerable. Careless spending may provide a brief escape from emptiness. The reward is false, but it is real enough to keep the habit alive. Identify that reward, then replace it with something better. If procrastination gives temporary relief, learn to find relief through completing your work. If approval gives you a sense of worth, build your worth through character instead. If anger makes you feel powerful, develop real strength through calm self-control. Do not simply remove the old reward, replace it with a better one. That is intelligent transformation. Every habit survives because some part of your mind believes it serves a purpose. Show your mind a better way. Sometimes the part of yourself that keeps defeating you is connected to an old wound. Be careful here. Pain can quietly become identity. A man who was rejected may spend years trying to prove that he can never be rejected again. A man who was humiliated may spend his life chasing status, believing he is pursuing success when he is actually responding to an old wound. Face that possibility honestly. You do not have to become smaller because something hurt you, but you should never allow pain to secretly design your entire life. Heal the wound. Do not build a palace around it. If every ambition you have is still an argument with the past, then the past remains in control. Release the need to prove yourself. Build your life from purpose instead. That does not weaken ambition, it purifies it. A purpose-driven ambition has greater endurance because it is not constantly fueled by anger or resentment. It can survive in peace. This matters because many people lose motivation as they begin healing. Their motivation depended on pain, so when the pain fades, they feel empty. At that point, they must discover a higher source of strength. Purpose, service, growth, faith, and character. These can carry a man much farther than resentment ever could. Do not be afraid to outgrow the emotions that once pushed you forward. You do not need to remain wounded to remain ambitious. The man you are becoming should not require an enemy. He should require a purpose. That is true mental freedom. Freedom begins with facing the truth. Ask yourself, what am I still using as fuel? What am I still avoiding? What truth am I pretending not to know? These questions may be uncomfortable, but sit with them. The answer you avoid may be the very door to your freedom. The part of yourself that defeats you survives because it remains outside honest examination. Bring it into the light. Write down the pattern. Write what triggers it. Write what you usually do next. Then write what the stronger response should be. Prepare your replacement before the test arrives. If criticism usually triggers anger, decide in advance that you'll pause before speaking. If fear usually leads to delay, decide the very first action you will take despite the fear. If success usually leads to complacency, establish standards that do not change because of praise. Decide these things before pressure comes. A decision made in calm moments can protect you in difficult ones. This is one of the highest forms of self-command. Do not wait until temptation becomes powerful before inventing your principles. Choose your principles beforehand. Then, when the old pattern appears, you will immediately recognize it. Say to yourself, I know what this is. Recognition alone weakens its power. The unknown controls through confusion. The known can be challenged. Know yourself. Not to excuse yourself, but to command yourself. As you begin interrupting familiar patterns, you will discover that the hardest battle is not against the weakness itself. It is against the identity that quietly formed around it. It is the old story that says, this is simply who I am, and this is who I will always be. That story must be broken. No one permanently defeats a habit while continuing to believe they belong to it. Often the story is stronger than the habit itself. A habit may disappear for a few days, but if the identity remains unchanged, the person eventually returns to old behavior because it still feels familiar. He says, I am trying to change, while secretly believing, this is who I really am. That inner contradiction drains all his strength. Break the story, not with fantasy, but with evidence. Do not merely say, I am a new man. Live in a way that gives those words weight. If you have always abandoned difficult work, finish something difficult. If you have always feared confrontation, face one necessary conversation with dignity. If you have always lived by impulse, create one clear rule and obey it. Identity changes when your behavior becomes undeniable. The old story survives through repetition, and so must the new one. You do not need to forget your past. You simply need to stop giving it final authority. The past may explain your habits, but it does not excuse continuing them. It may reveal where the wound began, but it does not decide how your story ends. A man becomes dangerous to his weakness when he stops using his history as permission. This is where responsibility begins. Blame looks backward and asks who caused the wound. Responsibility looks forward and asks who will now govern the healing. Often the answer is you. That may feel unfair, but accept it anyway. Life rarely asks whether you caused the burden before asking whether you will carry it wisely. A man may inherit fear from a difficult childhood. He may inherit poor thinking from his environment. He may be taught to doubt himself, avoid risk, distrust success, or accept weakness as normal. These influences are real. But once you recognize them, you must decide whether they will continue ruling your life. You cannot build a strong future by spending all your energy explaining how weakness entered your life. Eventually, the only question that matters is what you will do now that you know it is there. That is the line between awareness and transformation. Awareness says, I understand the pattern. Transformation says, I will no longer obey it. Cross that line, the old identity may resist because it once protected you. Perhaps it protected you from disappointment by expecting very little. Perhaps it protected you from criticism by remaining invisible. Perhaps it protected you from responsibility by convincing you that you were not capable. Understand this carefully. A weak identity can feel safe. It asks less from you. It reduces risk. It shields you from the embarrassment of trying and failing. But safety purchased through self-betrayal is simply another form of defeat. Do not confuse protection with prison. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you may once have been a necessary defense. That does not mean it deserves to remain in command. A child may need certain forms of protection that become destructive in adulthood. Fear that once kept you cautious may later keep you small. Silence that once protected you may later prevent necessary truth. Approval seeking that once helped you survive may later make you dependent. Outgrow what no longer serves you. Growth requires courage because it often feels like disloyalty to your old self. You may begin to feel unfamiliar to yourself. That is not danger. It is often proof that a new pattern is being formed. Do not retreat simply because strength feels unfamiliar. Weakness only feels natural because you practiced it longer. Practice strength until it becomes familiar instead. This is one of the great laws of self-mastery. The mind eventually accepts as normal whatever it experiences repeatedly. If you repeatedly surrender, surrender feels natural. If you repeatedly command yourself, self-command begins to feel natural. That is why repetition matters more than intensity. A man may have one extraordinary day and still remain weak in character. Another man may make one modest correction every single day and become completely transformed within a year. Choose repetition. Intensity may begin the journey, but consistency creates lasting transformation. The part of you that keeps defeating you assumes your discipline is temporary. It believes you will eventually return to old habits. Prove it wrong. Do not wage a short campaign against weakness. Establish a new standard of living. A campaign eventually ends. A standard becomes who you are. A standard is more than a goal. It becomes a way of living. If your weakness is procrastination, let your new standard be prompt action. If your weakness is fear, let your new standard be courageous movement. If your weakness is self-pity, let responsibility become your daily practice. If anger has controlled you, let calm and measured responses become your new habit. Build the opposite behavior intentionally. Do not spend all your energy shouting against darkness. Light a candle instead. That is far more effective. The man who constantly says, I must stop being lazy, keeps his attention fixed on laziness. But the man who says, I begin my work at the appointed hour, creates a practical standard he can live by. The man who says, I must stop fearing failure, remains occupied with fear. The man who says, I act before certainty is complete, establishes a new rule for his life. Create rules that strengthen you. Simple rules, clear rules, and measurable rules. The mind responds far better to definite commands than to vague aspirations. Be better is too uncertain. Begin at 8 o'clock is clear. Be disciplined is vague. Complete the first task before starting another is measurable. Be brave is abstract. Speak the necessary truth calmly today is actionable. Make strength specific. Specific actions give your new identity structure and direction. But structure alone is not enough. It must be supported by your environment. You cannot repeatedly place yourself in situations that strengthen your old habits and expect your new ones to survive. If certain places awaken weakness, be aware of them. If certain conversations feed resentment, limit them. If certain people continually pull you back toward the person you used to be, create distance where necessary. You do not need to hate anyone. You simply need to understand the power of influence. Just as a plant grows according to both its nature and its environment, so does character. Choose environments that support the man you are becoming. This may require loneliness for a season. Do not fear it. Sometimes temporary separation is necessary before strength becomes stable. A man recovering from years of weakness may need distance from people who only know how to relate to his old identity. They may laugh at his new discipline. They may remind him of old failures. They may tempt him back into familiar habits because his growth makes them uncomfortable. Do not become angry. Simply continue growing. You do not need permission from people who benefited from your weakness. Remember this truth. Sometimes people prefer the old version of you because the old version was easier to control. Your new boundaries may inconvenience them. Your higher standards may expose their own lack of discipline. Do not lower yourself just to restore their comfort. Be respectful but remain firm. The defeated part of you often uses other people as excuses. It whispers, they will be disappointed. They will think I have changed. They will call me selfish. Listen carefully. Perhaps you have changed, and perhaps you should. If change means becoming more disciplined, more truthful, more focused, and more responsible, then let people notice. Growth always changes relationships. The real question is whether those relationships are willing to grow with you. Do not become cruel in the name of boundaries, but do not become weak in the name of kindness. Kindness without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Strength without kindness becomes hardness. True maturity requires both. A strong man can say no without hatred. He can walk away without revenge. He can protect his purpose without turning everyone who disagrees with him into an enemy. The old defeated part of you may also depend on emotional chaos. Some people become so accustomed to crisis that they no longer know how to live in peace. When life becomes calm, they unconsciously create new problems. They start unnecessary arguments. They make reckless decisions. They return to destructive habits. Why? Because chaos feels familiar, while peace feels strange. Examine this carefully. You may be sabotaging your own progress because stability feels unfamiliar. Do not assume every uncomfortable feeling means something is wrong. Sometimes discomfort is simply your nervous system adjusting to a healthier way of living. Stay with the peace. Do not create another fire simply because you know how to survive the smoke. Learn a new way. The man who has spent years fighting may not yet know how to build. Building requires a different mindset. Fighting reacts. Building plans. Fighting survives. Building creates. If your identity has always been built around overcoming crises, success itself may leave you confused. You must develop a purpose greater than survival. Ask yourself, what am I building now that I am no longer simply escaping? That question is essential. A man who does not know what to build often returns to his old problems because those problems gave him an identity. Do not become dependent on having an enemy. Become devoted to having a purpose. This is one of life's greatest transitions. The strongest version of yourself should not appear only when something is wrong. He should also know how to create when everything is going well. Learn to be at peace with progress. Learn to continue moving forward without constant drama. Many people mistake emotional intensity for real progress. Drama creates excitement, and excitement feels like movement. But intensity is not always growth. Quiet discipline often carries you much farther than emotional highs. Learn to respect calm, consistent progress. The part of yourself that keeps defeating you often thinks in extremes. Everything is either perfect or worthless, success or complete failure. This way of thinking is dangerous. It makes one mistake feel like proof that the entire effort has been ruined. Then the man quits. Reject this mindset. Growth is never a perfectly straight line. You will advance, stumble, correct yourself, recover, and continue moving forward. What matters most is your return. Return quickly. If you miss one day, begin again tomorrow. If you make one poor decision, make a better one next. If you speak carelessly, apologize and practice restraint again. The defeated part of you wants permanence. It whispers, see, you haven't really changed. Do not give it that victory. One mistake is only an event. A pattern is created by repetition. Refuse to repeat it. That is the difference. The stronger man protects his progress by refusing to turn a temporary lapse into a permanent lifestyle. He does not exaggerate every failure, but neither does he excuse it. He simply corrects it and moves forward. That balance is rare. Become one of the rare people who live by it. Another hidden form of defeat is perfectionism. It often appears noble, but it usually produces delay. A man says, I want to do it properly, when what he really means is, I'm afraid to produce something imperfect. So he waits. He plans endlessly. He studies endlessly. He prepares far beyond what is necessary. Yet the work never enters reality. This is fear dressed in elegant clothing. Call it by its true name. Perfectionism protects the ego from criticism. If the work is never finished, it can never be judged. But it also can never succeed. Finish your work. Then improve it afterward. That is how real ability is developed. The man who completes his work receives valuable feedback. The man who endlessly prepares receives only imagination. Reality teaches faster than endless thinking ever can. Do not worship readiness. Begin before you feel completely prepared, and then improve as you go. This does not mean becoming careless. It means respecting action. Action reveals weaknesses that thinking alone can never expose. Let reality become your greatest teacher. The greatest battle of your life will never be fought against another person. It will be fought against the version of yourself that keeps asking you to settle for less than you are capable of becoming. That battle is not won in one dramatic moment. It is won in ordinary moments, when no one is watching, when you choose discipline over comfort, truth over excuses, purpose over distraction, and action over fear. Every small victory is a vote for the person you are becoming. Do not wait for perfect conditions. Do not wait until you feel fearless, fully prepared, or completely confident. Confidence is not the beginning of courage. Courage is the beginning of confidence. Every time you keep your word to yourself, you become stronger. Every time you refuse an old habit, you weaken its hold. Every time you choose the harder but better path, you prove that your future no longer belongs to your past. Remember this: your weakness is not your identity. Your past is not your sentence. Your failures are not your future. They are only chapters, not the ending of your story. The man you become will be shaped far more by the decisions you repeat than by the mistakes you regret. So stop negotiating with the part of yourself that wants an easier life. Stop asking whether change is possible and begin proving that it is. Build standards that do not depend on mood. Build character that does not depend on applause. Build a purpose that does not disappear when life becomes difficult. One day you will look back and realize that the life you wanted was never waiting for a perfect version of you. It was waiting for a committed one. A man who showed up when it was difficult. A man who kept moving when it was slow. A man who chose responsibility over excuses again and again until strength became his nature. The question has never been whether you are capable of changing. The question is whether you are willing to practice that change every single day. Because in the end, your destiny will not be decided by your intentions. It will be decided by your standards. It will be decided by your habits. It will be decided by the person you choose to become, starting now.